got to be detailed, precise, and informed.
That's DPI.
Welcome back, everybody, to That's DPI. I'm Zach, and that is Tyler over there. And we've got another great episode for you guys. It's summertime, and I know that you guys enjoy a good summer beverage. And so we've got some Arnold Palmer news for you guys. TERRION Arnold and Carson Palmer, that is. We're going to be talking about the vastly complicated situation that is the arrest and hearings and release of TERRION Arnold, the cornerback from the Detroit Lions. And we're going to be talking about the Carson Palmer rule, which led to many roughing the passer penalties that marred many controversial plays in the playoffs since its passage. And then we're also going to start with some crazy news about Brendan Sorsby in the NFL's supplemental draft. But that is kind of a saga, so I'm going to let Tyler take that one over. Tyler, go ahead.
So, you've probably heard of the Brendan Sorsby situation where he bet on his own team, checked himself into rehab for gambling addiction, and then was originally denied eligibility by the NCAA until a judge out of Lubbock, Texas, a Texas Tech alum that is also, grant him an injunction giving him eligibility again for this upcoming college football season. Before we kind of get into takes on stuff, I just want to give you the timeline of those events. So that happened, of course. The Lubbock, Texas judge granted him an injunction, giving him eligibility. After that, the NCAA and all of the teams in the NCAA kind of lost its mind. You've got Gene Taylor actually cursing to the media about it. You don't see, like, you just don't see that out of athletic directors, like, actually making the cursing, especially Gene Taylor, the Kansas State athletic director. A lot of leagues came together and said, we are going to refuse to play Texas Tech. We're going to refuse all of these things. And then before anything happened, the NCAA kind of realized, okay, all right, before we open up a can of worms, all right, yep, we're going to go back. He's going to be ineligible. So then he tried to go into the NFL supplemental draft, which we're going to break down in just a moment. The NFL denied him eligibility in this year's supplemental draft, saying that they will not have a supplemental draft. And then a lot of memes came up saying that, man, what if the UFL signed him? And what if it was the Houston Gamblers that signed Sorsby? And it was not the Houston Gamblers. It was the other Texas team. It was the other Texas team, the Dallas Renegades, that signed him. So this upcoming football season, Brendan Sorsby will be playing for the Dallas Renegades.
You could say he's a little bit of a renegade, though, couldn't you?
Oh yeah, for sure. But man, the Houston Gamblers had the opportunity to do such a funny thing.
Agreed. What a wild situation, especially with all of the other sports betting related controversies going on in the worldwide world of sports, with the NBA having players be accused of sports betting and indicted for such a thing. But yeah, a renegade is defined by Merriam-Webster as someone who defies conventional rules. So yeah, I think conventional rules state that you shouldn't bet on your own team in college football. But Tyler, what is the supplemental draft, and why did the NFL not hold one for Brendan Sorsby?
So the NFL supplemental draft is for players who were not eligible for the April draft for whatever reason, whether they didn't apply, because you do have to declare for the draft. So they didn't declare for the draft, so they're not eligible for the draft. However, then if you then lose NCAA eligibility post April's draft, whether that be due to academic reasons, legal issues, transfer rules that get changed, whatever reason, if you're no longer eligible to partake in college football the upcoming season, you can apply to be part of the NFL's supplemental draft. In order to do that, okay, and this is where it gets important when it comes to the Brendan Sorsby case. To be eligible for the to be eligible for the NFL supplemental draft, you have to apply to the NCAA for special eligibility. In that application, you have to kind of state why you're no longer eligible in the NCAA, but also why you should be eligible for the NFL. And again, it goes on a case-by-case basis there. And then if the NFL decides to have one, which they have not done since 2019, they would then kind of go round by round, but it's not a draft. It's not a draft like in April where every team makes a pick. If you draft in the supplemental draft, you will lose that pick the following April draft. So if the Chiefs were to draft someone in the 6th round of the supplemental draft, we lose our 6th round pick the following April.
Right. And, there haven't been, not only has there not been a supplemental draft since 2019, there hasn't really been a high pick in the supplemental draft outside of one outlier in 2012. And that was Josh Gordon, who, did play for the Chiefs, but he was selected with a 2nd round pick by the Browns. Ended up having the talent for a 2nd round pick, just not the mental state. He was dismissed from college for a failed marijuana test, and then, he failed out of the NFL due to marijuana as well. But yeah, the supplemental draft typically does not have more than one player in it. And so when Sorsby applied for the supplemental draft, there were no other eligible players. The NFL denied his claim, essentially, right? They just said, pound sand, Brendan, you're not coming to the NFL.
Had they said exactly what you just said, it would have been less damaging to Sorsby than what they actually said. Did you read the giant letter they sent to Sorsby?
I mean, it was essentially 2 pages long about why, there's no way that he's going to circumvent the regular draft and come in like a man of his character or something like that.
They said that they said, and I'm paraphrasing, but not by that much. They said that what you did was detrimental to the integrity of the game. You took no accountability for your actions. Your claim does not provide basis that you won't do this in the NFL, basically. And they roasted him for 2 pages long, saying that you have not, that they did say that you did not show remorse in your application for what you did. And they just roasted the crap out of him for 2 pages. It was so funny.
And you know what? This is a rare NFLW. Like, absolutely. Tear him a new one. There's no reason for this to be anywhere near the NFL. The NFL is at the top of its game in terms of North American sports dominance. And, it's expanding internationally. They don't need any reason for that to be in jeopardy. And Brendan Sorsby, as the NBA is about to find out, puts that in jeopardy. As soon as the integrity of the game becomes a question, that puts your sports league in jeopardy. But
the NFL's already been having that problem because there are a lot of fans that think the NFL is rigged due to the officiating. And honestly, there is even conspiracy theories about Mahomes throwing an AFC championship game. So if you let someone into the league who has a known gambling addiction, you're going to lose all integrity if something happens.
Yeah, I'm shocked that a judge was able to get his eligibility somehow, or whatever he did, whatever injunction they gave him. I wish that the judges in the TERRION ARNOLD situation were as kind and forgiving. If you are willing to shift over to that conversation.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything more to talk about with Sorsby. We're not going to debate whether he should or shouldn't be eligible. It's just kind of more of an update on what happened and what the supplemental draft is that he was denied for.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think that we covered that for the most part. So moving on to also a very complicated situation, but in different ways. So TERRION ARNOLD was a former first-round pick of the Detroit Lions back in 2024. And earlier this year, around February, there was a situation that was reported on where he got robbed of $250,000 worth of money and jewelry. And then, like a day later, like the robbers were robbed back of these, or they were kidnapped and, pistol whipped and robbed back of that stolen goods. That is kind of like a get back.
These are the allegations, or
these are arrests and plea deals that have already gone on during that first period. There were 2 people that were arrested for doing that act. Okay, Arnold was reported as being involved, but not arrested at that time. Just those other guys that were connected with Arnold in some way. So Arnold was left unscathed, told the Lions that he wasn't involved, and so the Lions took no action. Months later, he is brought in to federal prison on 8 felony charges for essentially it's the principal theory of law. In Florida, that statute means that he was principal in the planning and the execution of the felonies. So he may not have been there pistol whipping the people himself, but if he was a principal actor in those offenses, he can be charged as if he committed those offenses. So that's why he's facing life in prison for these 8 felony charges. That's crazy. But for a guy that wasn't there, but that's how the law works. It's how conspiracy charges work. It's how the principal theory in the state of Florida works. So Arnold is brought in, held over the weekend in prison, and then there was a hearing for his bond. This hearing lasted 3 hours and was live streamed. I watched it because it concerns my starting cornerback. And essentially, the bond hearings are weird because you don't really get access to discovery. You don't get a lot of stuff. For those of you who watch Suits, hopefully you're getting a little bit. I know that you have, Tyler. Hopefully you're getting a little of this legalese. But essentially, Arnold's defense attorneys did not have access to all the evidence that the prosecution had. They don't know what they have. So they have access to only a certain select amount of things. And the prosecution essentially argued that Arnold is connected, and the defense attorney said he's not in any of the group chats. He's not on any of the FaceTime calls. The only thing you have is some witness testimony from people that already took plea deals. This is a pretty slim case to be held without bond. Bond should be granted. The judge agreed that bond should be granted. It was set at $1 million. Arnold is out on bond, but the judge still found a probable cause for the case to continue. He actually said, we're in the first quarter of this case. He used a football analogy, props to the judge. So he maintained that Arnold will still be moving forward with charges against him, but he will at least be able to be let out of jail. And the judge even gave him even more grace. He said, you don't have to wear an ankle monitor because you turned yourself in immediately, and you can't wear an ankle monitor at football practice. Well, the Lions cut him the next day, so he won't need that. And now it is being reported that 3 other teams are interested in signing TERRION Arnold, but due to court scheduling, he will not be playing in the NFL this season. So I think the Lions are an organization that prioritize eliminating distractions, especially this season. Their schedule release just said, we're not concerned with a funny schedule release because we're going to eliminate distractions. They did not hold a rookie minicamp. They were the only team in the NFL to not hold a rookie minicamp because they wanted to eliminate distractions. So obviously, cutting ties with TERRION Arnold may seem premature, especially if the case against Arnold looks weak. But the Lions want to eliminate distractions on what is a pivotal year in the Dan Campbell era. But I'll yield to you, Tyler. What am I missing? What other questions do you think the viewers might have?
I want to ask like 1 or 2 legal questions just to make sure that we understand the situation a little bit, and then I'll get into eligibility and back to football.
Sure.
So he was not there, but he's connected. I understand that idea that guilty by association isn't necessarily a thing in law, but you can still be connected even without being there. With him not being there, are they basically saying that Arnold put those guys up to that task?
Yeah, essentially.
What's the connection?
Here's what each side is arguing, so we can kind of get a better idea of where the case stands. The state, the prosecuting attorney, is arguing that Arnold instructed the men to do and had full knowledge of the plan that they were going to do. And this is supported by a statement that Arnold made to his friends. He's like, I think I know who did this robbery, and I want to confront them. He used those words, I want to confront them. And so the state is taking that statement and saying, Arnold probably told his friends, and we have testimony from his friends that they told him to commit these acts. And the defense, Arnold's defense, is arguing that is very flimsy because we're relying on 2 people's testimony that already took plea deals and are fully cooperative and will say what the police want them to say. And until you have hard evidence to back up those claims, Arnold should be treated as innocent. And the burden of proof will be on the state to prove that there is hard evidence backing up the he said, she said argument. But I imagine that you don't go into a case as a prosecuting attorney with a high-profile individual who has the money to sign good counsel if you don't have anything. I don't think that you go into that case with that. So I imagine the state has some evidence, or else they wouldn't be pursuing this case as aggressively as they are. That's an assumption, obviously, but that's what the two sides are arguing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so there's the connection. So now going into eligibility, the Lions have cut him basically out of morality. I'm not going to debate that necessarily, but is he technically eligible still? Can another team that maybe doesn't care about morality or wants to treat someone as innocent until they're found guilty, can another team pick him up right now?
So, yes, they can. Here's the thing with the decision by the Lions to cut him. There is a clause in almost every NFL contract called conduct detrimental to the team. I'm sure you've heard the term. The Lions cut Arnold based on conduct detrimental to the team. All this negative reporting, that's more than enough evidence. They actually did the same thing with another Lions cornerback named Cameron Sutton, who had a pretty serious domestic abuse charge a few years ago. They cut him immediately. And what you can do is you can recoup all guarantees, you can void all guarantees that you will have paid the player, and you can ask for guarantees that you've already paid to the player back. So it voids all future guarantees, and you could even come after guarantees from the past. And given the Lions' history of doing that to both Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, I am sure they will be doing that. And so that's kind of the reason the Lions are probably cutting him. He's not going to play this year because of his court stuff. He just can't. The scheduling won't allow for it. And so the Lions said, might as well clear a roster spot and get our money back. But that won't stop a team from rostering him and putting him on like IR or something like that, because you can do that with suspended players and just rostering him until the legal stuff clears up. And if they think he's not guilty and he comes off not guilty, they can activate him next season and he'll be able to play then. But that's as reported by Adam Schefter that he won't be able to play next season. So I'm taking him at his word there.
He won't be able to play, meaning he's probably not going to be eligible?
I'm saying that Adam Schefter is reporting that he won't be playing due to scheduling purposes in 2026.
Gotcha. So he's okay. So it's not an NFL suspending him. That's just like he can't do anything yet because he won't be. The legal process will not have gone through yet.
Correct. It's different than the Rashee Rice situation. And I'm actually not entirely sure why, but I'm just going off of Schefter's reporting here that he won't be able to play till next year. And
that's where my questions were kind of leading, is like, why is he not eligible, but like Rashee Rice was? Because both were dealing with active investigations. I mean, the NFL has said in a number of cases. Now, I understand that robbery and kidnapping is a lot different than a hit and run where no one was injured. But I'm wondering if that's maybe why it's different. Is like, was Rashee Rice's technically like a misdemeanor while this is a felony? Is that what makes it different? It's kind of more of a lawyer episode, I guess. But
so here's what I think will happen if another team signs him. Is widely believed and reported that there's a list called the Commissioner's Exempt List. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I believe Hill was on it at one point. I believe Tyreek Hill was on it.
That's right. And so that it essentially places a player on paid leave during an active unresolved legal situation. So he would be on that list, meaning that he's not suspended by the league, but he's also not eligible to play. So gotcha. Rice was never put on the Commissioner's Exempt List for whatever reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he was not a free agent or whatever. I don't know. But Arnold is expected to be put on that list.
My honest guess is on why Rashee Rice isn't or was never on that list is because no one was hurt. It's a hit and run. It with there being no injuries, thank goodness for Rashee Rice, let alone the Chiefs. A hit and run is not near as big of a deal as this is kidnapping and robbing. Tyreek Hill was put on it during the allegations of child abuse and domestic battery or domestic violence to some degree. So I think that's during that time. He was also on a roster. Tyreek Hill never got cut. Rashee Rice never got cut. And so, yeah, you're right. If the Chiefs went and signed TERRION ARNOLD tomorrow, he probably immediately gets on the commissioner's exempt list.
Right. And then when his court date is scheduled, if it's in December or January, he's not going to be able to move those court dates. And I mean, he could request a continuance, but it took 3 hours of struggle to get him without bond. And it took a very lenient judge to not even have him with an ankle bracelet. So these are very serious charges at the state of Florida. And for those of you who know about the state of Florida and their criminal justice proceedings, they don't mess around for whatever reason. They are hard on crime. That's something that their governor has talked about, and that's something that reflects in their courts. And it's certainly reflective on TERRION ARNOLD. But I kind of do want to pivot to the football angle of this. I know that you were asking me for the show, what do you think the Lions are going to do? They have an open roster spot, and their first-round pick from just 2 years ago is gone. And there was a moment in our friends group chat where someone said, "Oh, this is season ending." I don't think that this is season ending, and I don't think it's even particularly close to that, because TERRION ARNOLD was never that good in the first place. What is frustrating about it is I think that he was just starting to come into his own, and he has a very high potential. But TERRION ARNOLD never really found his footing properly in the NFL. He has a career passer rating allowed of 95. He commits a ton of penalties, and he was injured most of last year. So right when he was hitting his stride, he hurt his shoulder and was out for the most of the year. So it sucks to lose that potential, but he was always still a question mark on whether he would be a above average starter on the Lions roster. The Lions defensive roster is not dependent on TERRION ARNOLD, is what I'm saying. It is certainly unfortunate, but what other questions do you have about the Lions football operations strategy after the loss of TERRION ARNOLD?
We've got one TERRION ARNOLD related question with that. It is football, and then we'll kind of go into maybe who can fill in that role. If December, January, whenever, not this year, but if whenever he is cleared, if he is in fact cleared, is that something that the Lions would be interested in going back and getting him for the following year, or is he out of Detroit forever?
That's a good question.
Assuming we're in a scenario where he gets found not guilty. Not saying that that's what we think is the case, but in this scenario,
I think that if he gets found not guilty, the Lions still wouldn't touch him, because it's very similar, which this is a horrible example now that I think about it. It's very similar to the Kareem Hunt situation in Kansas City. There was an incident. He came to the team. He told them what happened. That turns out it didn't what happened, and they cut him. He ended up signing back with them years later. But I think that Andy Reid is someone with the reputation of giving players a second chance, a la Michael Vick in Philadelphia, a la Tyreek Hill, a la Kareem Hunt, all of these guys, Josh Gordon. There's more than enough evidence to suggest that Andy Reid enjoys giving guys a second chance that may have made a mistake. There's more than enough evidence to show that Dan Campbell does not share that philosophy. The Lions' number one thing they look at during the draft is, are they a culture fit? And someone who makes these decisions like Arnold has is not a culture fit, and the Lions would never chance bringing him back.
Okay, and that does make sense. So now getting into who's going to fill that void. Right off the bat, what corner becomes cornerback number one now, and what cornerback jumps up to cornerback number two? Who is in the Lions secondary now?
And that's a good question. Cornerback one was actually not TERRION ARNOLD, believe it or not. It was DJ Reed, former Kansas State Wildcats.
That's right.
He plays starting outside corner. Even last year, he was starting outside corner. The only reason that Arnold had to fill in was DJ Reed hurt his hamstring. And so Arnold had to fill in at CB1. And then in his rookie year, the Lions cornerback one was Carlton Davis, who is now on a new team. I forget which team, but maybe the Patriots, I think. But then Carlton Davis broke his jaw, so Arnold had to take over as a starting corner. So Arnold has never been the top of the roster corner on the Lions ever. It's always been due to injury. So Reed still maintains that CB1 role, but he was definitely penciled in as that CB2. So the guys that would take over are Rock Yassin, former second-round pick. He's a veteran now in his 30s, but he played very admirable football for Detroit last year. He had one of his best coverage seasons as a pro. He was a top 60 corner in the NFL for being a depth guy. That's pretty good. And I would imagine that he will start the season at that outside corner spot. But there's also TERRION Arnold's draft mate, a second-round pick, in Ennis Rakestraw, who's had both of his last 2 seasons disrupted by injury. If he is able to stay healthy, I imagine he gets a lot of reps at cornerback too. And of course, the Lions drafted a corner, knowing that this could possibly turn into a thing out of Arizona State, Keith Abney. I wouldn't be shocked if he, who was a highly touted prospect in the 4th round and largely looked at as a steal by Detroit, I would not be shocked if he gets reps on the outside, considering the Lions signed Roger McCreary to play nickel. So Abney would have the opportunity to rep outside. So any one of those 3 guys, whether it's Rock Yassin, the veteran, Ennis Rakestraw, the young, unproven, injury-prone guy, or Keith Abney, the fresh out-the-box rookie, I think those 3 guys are your battle, 3-way battle for the outside corner position in Detroit. And that's not even counting if they bring in a veteran that is a free agent currently, like Rasul Douglas, who was a Miami Dolphin last year and posted a very quality season for them with like 9 pass breakups and only a 72 passer rating allowed last year in his season where he logged 851 snaps. He is 30 and was selected in the 3rd round in 2017 by the Eagles, but I think he's a solid veteran option that still has some juice left in him. And I imagine the Lions make some sort of veteran move. Maybe it's Douglas. Maybe it's someone else like, Najee Johnson, right? Former Kansas City Chief, who is a free agent, still young, still malleable, or Arthur Mollett, or another corner that was on the Legion of Whom last year that the Lions had to rotate their corners anyway. So, but I'm curious what you think of those options.
Yeah, I think if Arnold was corner 2, like you're saying, if they signed a guy if they already signed a guy to come in and play nickel, then yeah, whoever that original guy was can certainly come in and take over Arnold. I was doing some research. The Lions still have Myers has $14.7 million in cap space. And there are some notable corners still out there. You mentioned Rasul Douglas. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Marshawn Lattimore, Trevin Diggs, and Kendall Fuller are also still free agent corners.
Not to mention Tre'Davious White, former Bill corner.
Yeah.
Like, these are all names that the Lions could go after, but kind of like you just did. I did some digging into their PFF grades and some of their advanced coverage statistics, and most of them, Lattimore and Diggs especially, had some pretty bad. Like, Diggs was signed to the Green Bay Packers and didn't play it much, and it wasn't very good play. They just needed corner depth for the playoffs. So Diggs is an option, but he's really been boom or bust, and the Cowboys just cut him. Like, they just did not want anything to do with him, and we don't really know much about that situation. And Lattimore is getting old and did not have a very good season last year for the Commanders. So I think Douglas is probably the best option. But those guys, if the Lions think either of those guys is a better scheme fit, I think they could go after any of them.
What if I give you L'Jarius Sneed for a second round?
Decline. I like L'Jarius Sneed so much less than all those other options. I think he is much worse.
I know historically you've been tearing up L'Jarius Sneed these last couple weeks, so I had to throw that trade for. What? Okay, on a real note with L'Jarius Sneed though, let's say the Chiefs said, "Hey, we'll give you L'Jarius Sneed." What is a valuable pick that you would actually give up?
I would give you guys a backup defensive interior player. I would give you guys former 6th-round pick. He's a pass rushing specialist defensive tackle named Mekhi Wingo. I would give you straight up player for player trade Mekhi Wingo, because our defensive interior room is very packed with talent, and Wingo doesn't really fit in the scheme. but I think he's a really talented player. When he's got on the field, he's done really well. He's looked really good. And Lord knows the Chiefs need some interior defensive line depth. And I think the Wingo would be a great young addition. He's literally still like only let me see how old he is for you, because he's not, I think he's only in his third year in the league. But I would give him straight up Wingo. Yeah, he's only 23 years old.
Fair.
So
that's a fair trade, honestly. That's not bad. Like a former 6th-round pick for L'Jarius Sneed, who played the last 2 years like an undrafted free agent.
Yeah. And like Wingo is 6'1", 295. He's a very pass rushing specialist, and I think the Chiefs could really use him.
Okay. Well, we're a month away from training camp. We'll see both of these things within the next month. We'll see who, in fact, the Lions are deciding to replace Arnold with. We will see what L'Jarius Sneed is like, and we'll see what the Chiefs pass rush is like. We will be there that very first day of training camp before the public is even there.
Yes, we're very excited. That's Wednesday, July 29th, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are pumped. We do this every year, so we'll be there bright and early. I mean, you'll have to check out our TikToks.
We'll be there the first 3 days.
Yeah.
First 2 or 3. We'll have at least one of us there the first 3 days.
But yeah, we'll be able to get firsthand looks at that defensive interior. Even though the pass rush is hard to evaluate at training camp, it's more the receivers, which I will still be very interested in. Don't get me wrong. But Tyler, funny thing, I looked into flying to Detroit for Detroit training camp.
Really?
I decided against it.
Did they do that in Detroit? Where do they do their training camp? Or is it in like one of the suburbs out there?
They do it in Allen Park. It's great. It's their practice facility. Problem is they don't have very many weekend sessions, and I would need to go on a weekend session because I'm already taking days off during the week to be some of the first folks at Chiefs training camp. So I did a weekend session in Detroit. They don't really do those for non-season ticket holders. They have 4 season ticket holder days only in Detroit.
Okay. And also, the Chiefs don't do a lot of full weekend sessions either. A lot of it's going to be either a Saturday or a Sunday. I think maybe each year they have one weekend where they do both, Saturday and Sunday. So the Chiefs don't do that a whole lot either.
Right. It's an NFL thing because like these guys are about to work all weekend anyway. So you don't want to push that out even further, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, no, we will be there in person. But did you want to move on from Arnold to our Palmer segment?
Absolutely.
So let me get that pulled up for you here, Tyler. But give us the situation.
Yeah. So the Arnold Palmer rule is something that
Carson
everyone
Palmer.
has seen. Yes.
You said Arnold Palmer.
That's the Arnold Palmer. You made too many Arnold Palmer jokes. The Carson Palmer rule, you made too many jokes about it. The Carson Palmer rule is a situation that every fan has seen, but maybe they don't know why. So go ahead and play this clip, and then we'll break down exactly what mysterious rule that everyone has seen without knowing was implemented.
Yeah, so here's Carson Palmer in the pocket. Getting hit below the knees and just crumpling like an origami sculpture. And this was on the first drive of the 2005 playoffs. And it affected Carson Palmer's career for the rest of his career. I mean, this was a career-defining injury for him.
What is it about Bengals quarterbacks with the number 9 having defining lower body injuries?
I mean, who knows? I think the Bengals might be cursed. But Carson Palmer, the clip is not very important other than the fact that you have to realize that where the defender is hitting Carson Palmer below the knees. And so the Carson Palmer rule is directly countering that problem because the Bengals would go on to lose that game. Obviously, you lose your starting quarterback. It changed football and Carson Palmer's career forever. But what is that rule, Tyler?
So that rule states that any hit to the quarterback below the knee is deemed a flag for roughing the passer. And it's to prevent the injuries of the quarterback. Now, we've seen that occur. We've seen very good reason for that to occur. We've seen flags where a quarterback gets hit below the knee, and then they get a 15-yard penalty. On the flip side, we have also occasionally seen when there's not a lot of contact there, but contact nonetheless. To me, it's similar to the face mask penalty. It makes sense that any hit to the quarterback's head is a penalty, but when you barely scrape Tom Brady's face mask, that's still a penalty. When you barely scrape Mahomes' face mask, you still have contact there. So this has led to a little bit of controversy, but that is why, is because of the Carson Palmer injury, where a major injury happened to the quarterback's knee or below area.
And obviously, this rule made it so that hitting a quarterback below the knees was strictly prohibited if you're hitting him in motion forcibly. But there's actually kind of a small extension to this rule, where that's called the Tom Brady rule, where Tom Brady tore his ACL, I believe, in a game against Kansas City, and it was kind of an extension.
Did it in week 1.
An extension of this rule is that defenders who are on the ground are not allowed to grab at the legs of quarterbacks either. So the Carson Palmer rule is you can't forcibly tackle quarterbacks, and then it was extended in 2009 after the Brady injury. You can't grab at the legs if you're on the ground either. So it essentially evolved into no contact below the knees on quarterbacks in the pocket, or you will be called for roughing the passer. And this is, I think that it kind of started the Indiana Jones boulder rolling down the hill of where roughing the passer is today, where kind of like you mentioned, Tyler, any contact to the head or neck area, any contact below will result in a penalty, whether you like it or not. And a lot of fans don't like it.
And the letter of the law is not necessarily where fans debate. Yeah, that makes sense. Don't hit the quarterback's head. Don't hit below their knees. That can happen. We had Brady and Carson Palmer both lose a season of eligibility, or not eligibility, lose a season of play due to these rules. So, like, the letter of the law makes sense. It's the spirit of the law that gets debated. So, do you think there should be a little subjectivity to this, or is it better to keep the letter of the law in the spirit of injuries?
I mean, I think it's almost like with the World Cup going on, it's almost like the offsides debate in soccer, right? Offsides was initially a rule back before visual replay assist was available to prevent major cherry picking offenses, right? But now we have precise camera angles that can tell you if the hair of my beard was ahead of the last defender, I'm going to get called offsides because the VAR can see me. It can see everything. So it's kind of gotten to that point too with football soccer offsides, where it's no longer preventing cherry picking. It's literally nitpicking minute positioning rules and calling goals off. And I think that it's actually hurting the game. But I acknowledge that there's no better way to enforce it than being exact every time. It is the same standard every time. And so I think that giving subjectivity to NFL referees is almost always a bad thing, because we look at the most subjective penalties, pass interference, and it is one of the penalties that we cover the most on this channel because it causes the most controversy. We're not covering offsides penalties, guys, because guess what? The rules state what an offsides penalty is, right? The rules do state what a pass interference is, but it seems half the time that refs don't quite know either. So I think the less subjectivity, the better. And I'm not complaining about the quarterbacks being protected. So I think that it should stay the way it is. Obviously, I think there could be better instruction to officials to officiate it better. Maybe incidental contact could be not flagged, or maybe some better judgment can be used. But overall, I just don't think that there's a better way to do it. But I'm curious on your opinions.
I actually agree with you. I think in every situation, if you go by the letter of the law, yeah, there's going to be a situation where that becomes roughing the passer. We've seen it happen to the Chiefs and against the Chiefs. Same thing with hitting below the knees as well. But at the exact same time, like you've said, taking away subjectivity creates a consistent basis of, is it a penalty or is it not a penalty, based on the letter of the law. And I think that since this letter of the law is solely to protect quarterbacks and protects the most marketable people on the field, I agree. This needs to be a letter of the law type of rule. You should not add subjectivity if the rule is created because of injuries.
100%. It's a player safety rule. It's not a player advantage rule like pass interference is. So if everyone knows the 2 things or the 3 things you can't do to a quarterback beforehand, I think it's fine. It's not like pass interference where sometimes hand fighting is allowed by some ref crews and sometimes it's not. I think that is a problem, but that's not the problem we're facing here because the standard is very clear. No head, no below the knee, and no excessive extracurricular stuff, and you won't get roughing the passer. Like no late
and
hitting.
No full body weight either.
Right. I'm sorry, no full body weight. That's a newer one, but yes, no full body weight. But those are defensive players are coached on that. Coaches are briefed on that, and those are pretty consistently applied, despite how annoying they can be sometimes, because a sack is a game-changing play, and having it taken away because of the body weight rule sucks. But whatever, it's for safety, so it's hard to argue against safety.
Yeah, I think the body weight one's the one that can be debated a little bit more, but the head or neck rule and the Carson Palmer rule below the knees, I just don't see I don't see a valid argument as to why that should go away or be less objective.
Definitely. I agree with you that the body weight rule has questionable merits just because it's very difficult to arrest your momentum and like roll to either side. It almost is over policing of defenders because there's so many things they have to consider, plus the speed of the NFL game and what they're all already thinking about. So I would be interested in seeing if the NFL would roll that one back. But once again, if it's consistently applied across all teams and across all games, it's hard for me to complain because consistency is all I crave with the NFL's officiating. My biggest complaint is that a lot of the times it's not consistent towards my team.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
But that's about all we had for the Carson Palmer rule. It's a little bit shorter of an episode this week, but you guys got a treat last week watching us rank every single NFL logo. If you haven't seen that one, make sure you go watch it and make sure you check out our hot takes about some of the iconic NFL logos. But training camp is right around the corner, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of that stuff, and we will see you guys next time.
Appreciate you guys.